thousands of Russians switch side and join Ukraine to fight against Russians. But their resistance is not only limited to combat activities, because as soon as this war is over, their ultimate goal will be to fight the regime of Putin. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's go straight to the point and begin by first of all looking at the most recent footage. And our first video comes to us from Danish economic zone, where we can see the remains of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. As you can see, it is pretty much completely destroyed, which leaves no more doubts that this was a diversion. Our next video comes to us from Germany, where we can see a local protest against sending weapons to Ukraine. And according to Russian propaganda, these were massive protests. Some state TV channels said that there were a lot of people, while the others claimed that there were tens of thousands participants. So yes, once again, please do not be mistaken. According to Russian propaganda, this is tens of thousands of people, and right here we can see just a couple of hundred of people. Alright, so the next video is something that you have probably already seen, and it is basically the present from Yevgeny Prigozhin to one of the members of European Parliament, which is this sledgehammer. I'm not saying it is like mafia style or anything like this. I mean, it's just the present, right? And in response to that, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Estonia released this video where he's presenting the handcuffs to Yevgeny Prigozhin. And he said that Senior Prigozhin can pick up his present at any time in the Hague International Tribunal. Alright, so the next picture comes to us from Chernovitsky-Bukovitsky Monastery. And just like with Kievo-Pechorskaya Lavra, the security service of Ukraine did a search in this place. And as a result of this, they were able to find some pro-Russian materials, including the medals for the liberation of Crimea. Then we go across the country to Vyshgorod, which is located to the north of Kiev. If you remember, just several days ago, this city has been under attack by Russians. And today, instead of continuously hiding in his bunker, President Zelensky visited this city and spoke with the residents. Next we go a little bit to the south, to Kiev itself. And as you can see right here, people are waiting in lines along with the other cars to get some gas from the gas stations for their generators. The problem with the energy in Ukraine is extremely serious, and it does not mean that if people do not talk about this, the problem resolves itself. Right here, for example, we can see just yet another night that the capital of Ukraine had gone through without electricity. And as for now, it is estimated that only approximately 30% of Kiev have relative access to the energy. And as a general rule, the residents have access to electricity for only 4 hours, and then there is a period of 8 hours when there is no access to power. As for now, the majority of outages are pretty much random, and if everything goes according to the plan with the repairs, and if there are no more attacks by Russians, hopefully next Monday, November 28th, they can become scheduled, so people can plan better. And then right here, for example, you can see the condition of the electrical equipment after Russian attacks. According to the Prime Minister of Ukraine, Denis Shmyhal, every single thermal and hydropower plant at some point has been attacked by Russians. And at any given point, anywhere between 200,000 to 400,000 Ukrainians are without electricity at all. Though at this very moment, the energy infrastructure of Ukraine can meet approximately 70% of its demand, and it is estimated that this Saturday all the nuclear power plants in Ukraine will be working at full capacity. And yeah, as you might imagine, Russia has been spending billions of dollars for these attacks against Ukraine's energy infrastructure. And as you can see right here, according to Forbes estimations, in just 9 months of this war, Russia has spent approximately 80+ billion billions on this war, which is approximately 1/4 of the country's budget. And it still confuses me so much how the regular Russians can see these numbers, where for example the average pension in Russia is like $150 per month. The war has slowed down significantly in the last several days, but if you have been watching my previous videos, you already know that there is a big storm which is about to be unleashed in the south and in Zaporozhye. And if you want to be among the first people to know exactly what's going on when these events start happening, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. I will also have a charitable live stream this Saturday, November 26th at 6 PM Eastern Standard Time, so please mark your calendars. Alright, and before I give you today's update on the south, let's really quick talk about the most recent events in the east. And first of all, it has been reported that a Russian military convoy, including T-90 tank, has been ambushed and destroyed by Ukrainians in Kislivka. The next thing is that Dibrova, next to Crimea, has been reportedly liberated by Ukrainians, though it is not yet reflected by this map. Going a little bit more to the south, our next stop brings us to Marinka, and recently Russians claimed that they were able to fully capture this settlement. But as you can see from this map, and according to Ukrainian sources, this city is still being contested, and both countries perform counterattacks, advance and recede pretty much every single day. Next we go to Zaporozhye region, to Hulyai Pole. Ukrainians still control this area, but according to some recent reports, Russians increased the intensity of their attacks, especially from Konstantinovka and Marfopil. The front line has been more or less unchanged for the last several days, but Russians were constantly bringing new reinforcements into this area to continue their pressure against Ukrainians. And then right here we can see the changes in territorial control over the last 48 hours. And first of all, Russians were able to advance a little bit to the north of Vladimirka. And then right here, as mentioned previously, they were also able to move closer to Marinka. Next we move to the south, to Mariupol, and as you can see from this picture, this is the work of Ukrainian partisans targeting Russian collaborators. And then reportedly another attack by Ukrainian partisans against Russian occupiers happened in Pologi. As always, more than 90% of the footage I receive every single day I simply cannot use on YouTube. For this reason, I uploaded some of it to my Discord and the rest will be available on my Patreon. And if you want to see these unacceptable photos and videos, the links will be down below. Alright, and now let's really quick talk about the south. At this very moment, the artillery duels between two countries still continue on the both sides of Dnipro river, and Russians prioritize to target Kherson city, while the main focus of Ukrainians is in Nova Kakhovka. At the same time, recently more and more Ukrainian partisans have been crossing the river and performing diversion activities on its left side. And at the same time, Ukrainians continue to prioritize the disruption of Russian logistics and the destruction of military headquarters. And if you remember from my yesterday's video, Russians have already installed 3 lines of defense on the left side of Dnipro river, and the furthest one is located 15 to 20 kilometers away from the river itself. They have also been actively mining the shoreline, so if any Ukrainians watching this video, please be careful. But this third line of defense, located 15 to 20 kilometers away, pretty much indicates that Russians are ready to withdraw even deeper inside Kherson region. And yes, this assumption has also been confirmed by Natalia Gumenyuk, which pretty much means I think we can expect the liberation of this part of Kherson in the nearest future. And before we talk about thousands of Russians joining Ukraine to fight the regime of Putin, allow me to give you a brief update about the no panic situation in Crimea. And first of all, it has been reported that the Russian air defense system has been engaged in Armyansk. And then, according to this article, the Russian occupiers in Crimea prepared the residents of this peninsula for the air raid sirens. What it basically means that they assemble the locals and present them the course of actions during air attacks. And I mean, as a civilian who lives in Crimea, how would you react? You see this massive success of Ukrainians to the north of where you live, and you know that they are planning to come to Crimea as well. And then your local authorities force you to learn how to survive during Russian general missile attacks. And in addition to that, a fresh military unit of Russians have been deployed to Chaplinka, which is conveniently located next to the border with Crimea. But still, according to the Russian authorities, there is no panic in the peninsula. At this point, it is pretty clear that some major events will be happening in the south in the nearest future. And so just once again, if you don't want to miss any of these updates, just please subscribe to my channel. It only takes one click. Alright, and now let's talk about the main part of the video, which is Russians fighting for the freedom of their own country. And the military unit I'm going to talk about, as you might have guessed it, it's the Freedom of Russia Legion. And by the way, this has been one of the most requested videos for me to make. So, what is this Freedom of Russia Legion? Who are they, what they do, and what are their goals? The earliest records of the formation of this military unit are dated from March 2022, just a couple of weeks after Russia invaded Ukraine. And in the beginning, it mainly consisted of the Russian prisoners of war and other volunteers who deflected from the Russian army and started fighting on the side of Ukraine. In addition to that, some other active Russian soldiers, they surrendered to Ukrainians on purpose to have a chance to be included in this legion. In the very beginning, it was fewer than 100 people, and as of right now, it is estimated that the number of its forces is close to several thousand. And this military unit has not only the Russian soldiers, but pretty much anyone who is united with the same goal, which is the rejection of Kremlin dictatorship and the desire to reform Russia. It has also been reported that they have the soldiers from Georgia, Belarus and other foreign countries. And their ranks are filled with pretty much anyone. They obviously have mostly just the regular citizens, but at the same time they even have some Russian oligarchs. And one of them, for example, is Igor Volobuyev, who used to be ex-vice president of Gazprom Bank. The information about his membership is a publicly available information, and even he himself said that yes, he is a public figure, so he cannot hide it, and this is just a fact. But obviously the information about the rest, majority of Freedom of Russia Legion, is very secretive. And even though a lot of Russians might want to join them, the recruitment process is extremely complicated. There are even some rumors that you have to be referred by someone and pass a double polygraph test. And the reason for this is obviously not to allow Russian infiltrators to join the ranks of the Freedom of Russia Legion, because treason is severely punished in Russia. And according to one of the most recent laws, it can land you up to 20 years in jail. And this is just the official punishment, because in reality I think it will be way worse. Because of this, once again, it is not much known about this military unit, but reportedly they did participate in the battles in the east, specifically around Bakhmut and Solidar. And the symbol of this legion is white, blue, white flag, which is basically the Russian flag without the red part at the bottom, which symbolizes the blood and violence. And the official slogan of this legion is "For Russia, for freedom." But besides fighting on Ukraine's side and helping them defeat the Russian invaders, their main goal outreaches far beyond that. Besides helping Ukraine, they also want to destroy the regime of Putin. So as you can see, winning in this war is just the first step in their ultimate goal. And during the times of instability in Russia, after they will lose in this war, they will do their best to reform their own country. Because as you might already know, Ukraine stated several times in the past that they are not planning to cross the border and do combat activities in Russia. And so, as soon as Ukraine can liberate Crimea and Donbass, It will be the responsibility of the Freedom of Russia Legion to go further. But besides them, there are also other military units which separated from Russia and pledged to fight against them. These people I talk about are mainly Chechens, and the two most well-known groups are the Sons of Ichkeria and the Sheikh Mansour Battalion. And even though they do fight on Ukraine's side, their main goal is not to fight with Ukrainians, is to fight against Russians. And this is their revenge for two Chechen wars in 90s and the beginning of 2000s. And while they cannot give Ukrainians all these modern weapons and military equipment, what they can give them is the experience. The experience of fighting Russians for more than 20 years. These people, both from the Freedom of Russia Legion and the Chechens, are not the traitors. They are the people who truly love their countries. And no amount of money or fear of persecution can change this for them. Because there's a huge difference between loving your government and loving your motherland. And you tell me who are the real patriots. And if you want to support my work, please consider becoming my channel member, use a PayPal link, or become my Patreon, where you'll receive additional content. All the other useful links can be found to the right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи, and see you tomorrow during charitable livestream.